Good afternoon and welcome to Lifelong Learners. And I'm your talk show host, Terrence Perry. And we have a exciting show for you today. We have two special guests that I'll bring on in just a minute. But I also want to introduce my producer, Amnon, this evening. Amnon, how you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm great, man. I'm looking forward to this show this afternoon. How about you?
You're running around like a chicken with its head, kind of, aren't you?
Most
All over town.
Uh, but yeah,
Yeah, I'm looking forward.
all right. Did you see the debates yesterday?
I saw the debate.
All right. Well, you know how that went, so we don't even need to go there with that. Uh, but it was a good one. But I do want to get into the show today. We do have two guests. We have Miea Walker, formerly with Jobs for Life, and Byron McMillan, Job for Life trainer of content and what content and
Director of content and
director of
training.
content and training.
Yes.
Byron, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I hope you are.
I'm good, man. You out in Chicago?
I'm in Chicago right now.
All right. What's going on in Chicago that got you way out there instead of here in North Carolina?
I'm just talking to some of my CCDA friends, Christian Community Development Association friends here in Chicago, and then I'm working with another friend down in Indiana, helping him fix up his house a little bit. He's transforming an old church into his home, so gonna have some fun there.
You're in work mode today, but Byron, introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do with the Jobs for Life organization.
Okay, yeah. So my name is Byron McMillan. I live in Cary, North Carolina, right outside of Raleigh. Whenever anybody asks me where I'm from, I tell them Raleigh. I've been there for 40 years. So been with Jobs for Life for 2 years as the director of content and training. The mission of Jobs for Life is to engage and equip the local church to address the impacts of joblessness through the dignity of work. And so my role is to train churches and church leaders and nonprofit organizations how to interact with Jobs for Life. And at our core, we have a 8-week jobs readiness training type of a program. There's a curriculum and a class that's around the curriculum. And so my responsibility is help train churches and organizations to run that class.
All right. I'm gonna ask you a couple more questions along those lines in just a minute, but I do want to bring on Miea Walker. Also, Miea, excuse me. Could you just tell us a little bit about who you are and actually, I want to know why are you an advocate for criminal justice? Why are you a criminal justice advocate now? But I know also you're also formerly a part of Jobs for Life. Can you just tell us a little bit about who you are today?
Sure. So my name is Miea Walker, and I was formerly the training and reentry specialist for Jobs for Life. My role in that space was to advocate for resources for people who are coming out of prison and to help them navigate into the community for successful reintegration. Now I am the Second Chance Alliance outreach coordinator for the North Carolina Justice Center, and mass incarceration and prison reentry is like the heartbeat of my soul. It's my love language. It's the place where I thrive because it's very personal to me. This is a personal, intimate story, not just impacting my life, but the countless numbers of men and women across the country who've been devastated by the systemic injustice of mass incarceration. And so I come from a platform of advocacy, but I also come from a platform of faith. And wanting to see the church become more intentional in creating community for those that are returning home.
All right. So, with yourself and Byron, either of you kind of tell me or tell the audience exactly how you all's part in Jobs for Life come together to make it happen like it does on a regular basis. I know I was actually a student in the Jobs for Life program back in 2012 And then later I became a facilitator with Jobs for Life. And I've always seen you two in passing, but didn't really know you as well as some of the others that I dealt with on a regular daily basis. But just a little bit more about Jobs for Life, just for the audience, because I know it's actually it's international at this point. Most people think it's just local in North Carolina with North Carolina churches, but it expands all over. What other countries are we in, Byron?
We are currently in Costa Rica,
Costa Rica.
Uganda, Africa, Italy, Australia, New Zealand, and there's probably a couple more that I'm missing.
Let me ask you this about you do the content for that curriculum. It's an 8 weeks curriculum. I went through that curriculum, and it is intense. Can you tell us a little bit about that curriculum and how I guess you put that content in place, as well as I guess the picture formats also? That whole content of the book, what is it? I don't know. I want to say it's probably near 200 pages, if not more.
Yeah, it is, and
Content.
it's been a work that's been evolving over the past 20 years. When Jobs for Life started out, it was you had a white business owner in Raleigh, North Carolina, very successful paving company. Heard a message by Dr. John Perkins that encouraged him to get to know someone who didn't look like him, and his wife will tell the story that he felt he was supposed to get to know an African American, and there's a black pastor, Pastor McCoy, AME pastor in Raleigh, who needed a parking lot paved. They needed their parking lot paved, and so someone told him to call C.C. Mangum company, said they would give you a good deal. Pastor McCoy called, and Chris Mangum, the VP of the company, answered the phone that day, and they began a business relationship. Chris Mangum came out and actually measured the parking lot himself, because he was trying to get to know this African American gentleman. And during that time of putting the project together, they became friends. They started sitting down, having lunch together, having dinner together, and getting to know one another and sharing their problems with each other. At one point, Chris Mangum said that he had a huge problem. The company was growing, and they had trucks sitting in the parking lot, without drivers, and they were losing thousands of dollars a day. Pastor McCoy said, well, that's funny. I have all these black men sitting in my pews, and they don't have jobs. So Jobs for Life was formed that day as they came together and said, how do we figure out how to get some of the men in my pews jobs at your company? So that's when they began meeting together and saying, let's figure this out. The Pastor McCoy went and got 12 other churches to bring the men that they had. Chris Mangum went and got 12 other business leaders, and they came together and created this curriculum, started pulling it together, and over 20 years that curriculum has evolved to be a jobs readiness program that's more than a jobs readiness program. It really focuses on the key aspects of identity, character, and community. So identity being rooted in being a creation of God. God said, let us make man in our image. So every human being has dignity. If you teach them job skills and how to put together a resume and some of these things, but you don't address their identity as a human being created in the image of God, they're going to fail. And so it's focused on identity. It's focused on character. Most jobs hire based on character rather than the skills. Most businesses say we can teach the skills, but we can't teach the character. So we use biblical stories to teach character. And then the last part is community, a community of people that come around you, befriend you, encourage you, become a support network of people. And so that's what the curriculum is based upon, those three characteristics: identity, character, and community.
All right. Um, Let me say also, anyone that want to call into the show today, do call in at 919-518-9773. If you want to voice your concerns, or if you got anything you want to ask Miea Walker or Byron McMillan, feel free to call into the show. And again, Byron was just talking about Jobs for Life. And like I said, back in 2012, I went to Jobs for Life as a student participant, because what they do also is help with with people that have I say blemishes on their their background, the criminal record of such. Mine had a DWI, and it was kind of stopping me from getting some of the jobs that I was trying to get. So when I went through Jobs for Life, they actually taught me how to prepare for a job interview and to just put that information out there. Uh, and before I guess the 8 weeks was up, I did have two jobs, and since then, it's been nonstop. Uh, but Miea, let me ask you also. You said that this is more or less your purpose, from I guess the Jobs for Life to the transition into um, the justice advocacy that you're doing now. Can you tell us a little bit about that transition from where you were with Jobs for Life to where you are now, with the new job with the justice advocacy that you were involved in?
Sure. I landed my job with Jobs for Life 4 months after I was released, which is kind of unheard of for people who have a criminal record. I was very blessed to meet my then supervisor, Byyron. And this is a woman that understands, not only she understood my background, but she understood people that are hurting, people that are suffering, whether it's with mental illness or someone who has a criminal record or people living in poverty. She's a champion. She's an advocate for that. And I felt like at the time that God really sent her into my life for a very special appointed time. But it was in my time with Jobs for Life that I discovered my platform and my space and my voice. Working with the training department allowed me many opportunities to travel with them, not just talking about Jobs for Life and the impact and really building up our cities and making connections, but it was also giving me a space to really delve into deeper issues that not only impacted women that are incarcerated, but also men, and really wanting to challenge our site leaders, challenge our sites and students in understanding what happens when someone's coming home and really giving them a voice. And so I became very intentional about creating training around that, really wanting to educate the church about how we got here. Many people have this concept that you're in prison, you come out, and now we're going to jump in and provide resources. And prison didn't happen in a vacuum. There are many systemic injustices that impact this population. And so I wanted to create a space where their voices are heard and be able to highlight how we got here. Let's talk about the why, and then funnel it down into what is the church's role in advocacy? What is the church, what does it mean? What does biblical justice mean? What does it mean for the church to be intentional in the lives of men and women that are coming home? And so it was during that process that I was able to really find my voice and my space in saying, this is what I want to do. This is what I know that I'm called to do, because every time I was either one-on-one with someone who's been impacted by incarceration or speaking in front of a church or different venues, is where I thrived, and it's where I could feel the true passion come out. And so I knew that this was a calling for me, that this was my design purpose that God had gifted me.
And then let me ask you also, because, and I'm not sure about the sequence, but I'm thinking, when you came out, you joined Jobs for Life, but soon after, you went to Wake Tech Community College, North Carolina State, and UNC Chapel Hill.
No, so
not that sequence.
Not that sequence. No.
Okay.
After graduating from high school, I enrolled in UNC, but at the time I was struggling with severe depression. I came from a family that, and I will say typically, I'm not going to classify this as all Afro-Americans, but typically Afro-Americans, we kind of deal with our own issues. And at the time when I was younger, we never talked about mental health issues. So not really being aware that I struggled with those. I was at UNC for about 2 years, and then I dropped out because my grades fell, and I was sleeping a lot and just severely depressed and dealing with a lot of issues that impacted my childhood. But upon learning that I was obviously going to go to prison, I went to the website of Department of Public Safety to see what things that they had at the time that could keep me active. And the big thing for me was education. I knew education was going to be the key to really helping me find my voice and discover what I really wanted to do. So I enrolled into the Shaw Cape program, and at the time that was a program for a 4-year degree in sociology. I graduated from that program in 2009, and it was during the time that I was in the program that I met one of the women who would become a mentor to me, Dr. Alice Knoll. She is over the Job Start program, which is a transitional program for women here in the state of North Carolina, and she has a partner relationship with Wake Tech. And through Wake Tech, I enrolled into the Human Service Substance Abuse Counseling and also Human Service Technology. I wanted to know, from a clinical perspective, why are we criminalizing the behavior of people who struggle with substance use disorder and addiction? But also, I wanted to have that platform of understanding ways that the community could advocate for people who are being incarcerated because of mental health issues and developing those relationships. So I made that plan. I completed 1 degree while I was there, and then transitioning out the door is when I completed the 2nd degree at Wake Tech and then enrolled into the MSW program at NC State.
Okay. So you have a degree in sociology,
No.
social work?
I have a degree in Master's in Social Work, Human Service Technology, and then Substance Abuse Counseling. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. That's steady. That's steady education.
Yes.
And which is and that's a good thing. But it also speaks to back to your calling and your purpose. You say that it speaks to that, making it give you a voice to be able to advocate for those that may have been incarcerated or going through a re-entry. Just that platform. But let me ask you, at this point, how are you using that platform? I think a couple of weeks ago you were at North Carolina State
Yes.
doing a speaking engagement, and that's where I think that was an article in the paper about that. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you got on that
Sure.
platform?
One of my good friends, Jennifer Castillo, she works with the Women's Center at NC State, and she and I have been good friends. And
Jennifer.
Jennifer, yes. And I met her through Byron. So she and I had met, and she was like, I'm really inspired by your story, and I would love to bring you on to the Women's Center platform. Recently, they hosted Brian Stevenson, who is the author of Just Mercy. He is the executive director of the Equal Justice Initiative, and so his platform comes from a perspective of abolishing the death penalty, mass incarceration, and when she was talking about it in that context, she said, I would really love to continue the theme of mass incarceration, and why don't you come and share your story? And so she worked with one of my former professors at NC State to bring me on, and they titled it that prison is personal and political. So it was an opportunity for me to engage with not just the social work department, but from students across many disciplines at NC State, at NC State. And I was really shocked because it was a diverse room, but I was shocked by the number of people who were impacted by incarceration. I asked them, I was like, tell me if you know someone or if you're aware of this population or what's going on. And a good portion of people did, and a good portion of that population was Caucasian. So I was quite shocked in that moment, but excited to see that there are people that are like, I don't know, whether they don't know about it or they're interested about it, or how can I help someone that's been impacted by incarceration. And it was a great conversation. I think I want to say it was like standing room only. And I had many people to contact me afterwards and say, how I have a family member that's incarcerated in a different state, or I have a friend whose child is on their way in the criminal justice system, and what way can what ways can we learn about it, and I can become more proactive in this space.
And I know when we talk about the criminal justice system, I think that you may, I want to say that you was overheard saying something about the pitfalls of the criminal justice system that kind of stood out in your mind. Can you share some of the pitfalls that you see in the American criminal justice system that I guess we as a whole need to deal with to bring about that change in the criminal justice system? Anything particular stands out in your mind?
Pitfalls. There's a lot, but I would say probably the our basic necessity of living, which is a job, right? So you're coming home and you're trying to find employment, and here in our state, we have mandatory parole, which was instituted in 2012. So that means if you were sentenced to 5 years, you now have 9 months post release, which also requires a fee of $40 a month. So if you were sentenced, let's say the same person was sentenced to 5 years and then also has probation, then you're having a dual sentence when you're coming home. You're going to always be on parole no matter what, no matter the length of time you served. And then if you have probation is generally attached to some type of monetary compensation, and so they're wanting to make sure that you pay those back. The sad thing is that many men and women that are coming out of prison do not have a job. Very few people, if they are transferred to a minimum security prison, that they're able to find employment while incarcerated, but a good portion of that group fail to do that. And so we are a society that continues to punish you long after you've completed your sentence. My thing is that if you have jumped through all the hoops of Department of Public Safety, you've met all the obligations, why are we still being punished and being penalized for a crime that happened 10, 15 years ago? Right. I mean, you think of someone that served like 20 years. That's 20 years of their life that they don't have any idea about social media. Think of all the things that have changed, right? And I always give people like this example of, we now have toilets that flush themselves. That might not be shocking to those of you in this room, but you think about people who never experienced that, or all of that technology change happened while they were there, and walking out and not knowing anything. There's this severe anxiety that you feel. There's this immediate scare or this immediate feeling of, oh my God, you know who I am. Not even knowing who you are, but you know who I am. I have this stench, I have this smell. There's something about you that's going to alert you that I might need to be a little bit more protective because that person's been in prison. And so we have to change that. We have to really come from a place of advocacy. For me, it's really challenging the church. I want you to do more than just feed the prisoner. I want you to do more than just pray for the prisoner. We have to somehow give talking points, or to really help churches understand that your role is just not behind the pulpit. You need to be on the front lines with our brothers and sisters.
Okay. So, Byron?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing to that. When Miea talks about her passion of mobilizing the church to address this issue, that's really where my heartbeat is as well, because it's going to take a mobilized church interacting with the criminal justice system, the political system, the economic system, because at our core, the system is not what it should be. Right. We have a retributive justice model system that says you do the crime, you're punished for it, and then you should change your mind, you should repent and turn around and go the other way. But what it does is it eliminates the possibility for reconciliation. So when you commit a crime against an individual, our system says that you have committed a crime against the state. So then it puts a block in between. Say if I assaulted Miea and I committed a crime against Miea, the state comes in and says, no, you didn't commit a crime against Miea, you committed a crime against the state. So it then blocks me from being able to reconcile with Miea, and the state just deals with me. And then it puts me behind bars for whatever amount of time, never allowing me to reconcile and restore that relationship that I have with Miea. So then I get released out into the world with a black mark that now permanently locks me up or locks me out of the American system. And there's no way to be restored, not just with the individual that I came in contact with and harmed, but with the whole society at large. So it's a systemic issue. The church is supposed to be full of people who are witnesses for Jesus Christ, who has came and ushered in a restorative justice movement. He was restoring people back into their relationships with God, with themselves, with each other, and all of creation. And so what should happen, and there's only two um, societies really that have a restorative justice system. New Zealand has a restorative justice, criminal justice system, and Australia, their youth um, have it's a restorative system where you say a crime is committed, let's work to restore the relationship between the person who committed the crime and the victim. And if there has to be punishment that's involved, then it's based out of those efforts of restoring the relationship first. And so this is really key, because everything that we have, we've created this system over years and years, and I'm sure we'll talk about mass incarceration and the new Jim Crow and all that later. But that is added to the problem. At its very core, the gospel of Christ is this process that says, okay, you commit a crime or a sin, you're confronted with unconditional love. That unconditional love creates a transformation within you, and then you turn around and you repent. The criminal justice system, and what too much of the church has adopted as their way of life, is that you commit a crime, you get punished, and then you're supposed to repent. And anybody who's a parent, anybody who's a friend knows that that doesn't work. You got to be confronted with unconditional love, saying no person is as bad. No person is as bad as the worst thing that they ever committed. That, no person has less value than the worst crime that they ever committed. We need to confront people with unconditional love and walk alongside of them. That's what's going to change hearts and minds. And the church has to be engaged in changing the whole system.
I agree with you that I think the church do, but also just society in general hasn't bought into the concept initially of unconditional love. It's talked about, it's always been talked about, but it's never been implemented, even in parenting. And part of it, I mean, you can take it back to, I'll take it back to slavery. Everything was always conditional, and America has always operated conditionally. It's never operated unconditionally. They speak of it in the church, but it's never been implemented in society. We've never seen it implemented. So even in parenting, parents have very rarely implement unconditional love, because they've been taught and they've been trained everything is conditional. It's mutual benefit. If it's not mutually beneficial, then this society don't necessarily approve of it. But I think we do need to get to a point of where the heart have to be unconditional. But this society is not there yet. And the way this society operates, do you think we'll get there? And I think it do take the church to make that happen. But even, when we talk about the church, there's a lot the church is being condemned in so many ways, because a lot of churches play church instead of actually being real and going outside of the church, going out into the community, and not just trying to get a congregation that's full every Sunday, but actually step on some toes when they're in church.
Yeah, well, Terrence, that's where you really hit on it now, and that's why I love my sister Miea. Just watching her, knowing her over the last couple of years, seeing her progress and mature as a human being. I just recall, I think it was last year, when she was in front of a locked-in solidarity crowd, and it's like this transformation came over her where she recognized that she had to call out the church and tell the church to be the church. And now when I see her speak to individuals and groups of people and start really calling us back, are we being the church? Are we being this model that Jesus left us? I mean, we're supposed to be a city on a hill. We're supposed to lead cultural change within our communities through this love that Jesus poured out on us. And yeah, we haven't done it. Shame on us. But there are people who are doing it and who are turning it around and who are speaking and giving the platform. And that's why I'm so grateful for Miea, her life, and what she's become, who she is, and now the position that she's in. And she can't speak of it from a Christian religious perspective, in her current role, but it just pours out of her, and people are wanting to know what makes Miea Miea. Why are you this way? And then she gets the opportunity to then share that out of the good that she's doing, just helping us to become a just society, first of all.
So, Mia, let me ask you: are you teaching classes on mass incarceration, at, or were you teaching up at North Carolina State or UNC on mass incarceration?
I would love to get that invitation, but no, these are mainly just people inviting me to give presentations. It is a goal of mine. So recently, speaking at NC State and also speaking at Wake Tech with one of my former instructors to his case management class, and I love the engagement. I love the interaction. I love the aha moment or the surprise and shock that people have, because if we are grooming people to work in human service or human service workers and working in with vulnerable populations, we need to challenge them a little bit and help them to see these are people who just want to live, want to have opportunities to live and to thrive and to really raise their children in a good space. And so wanting to help engage that conversation with them.
Let me ask you this too, Mia. You you had mentioned some about I guess when people are coming out of reentry, doing a holistic treatment plan for them. What does that look like? What does that treatment plan look like? Recovery plan of such for somebody that's coming out and trying to move forward.
This actually came. I started thinking about it when I was incarcerated because typically my case management sessions were typically they would happen like twice a year, and the conversation was, has anything changed? Any concerns? Any questions? No, sign here. So you were in and out in 5 minutes. I'm not saying that that is standard across the state of North Carolina, but that was my experience and some experience of some other women that I served. I'm pretty sure it's changed. I would like to pray and think that has changed. But I think when you think of holistically working with people or creating a treatment plan, it has to come from identifying their areas of need. For someone that's incarcerated, off the bat, it's going to be education, it's going to be employment, it's going to be housing, it's going to be transportation, and it's also going to come also addressing their criminal record.
Hold
So
up, let's say that again. You say it's going to be
education,
jobs,
jobs,
education,
housing,
housing,
transportation,
transportation, and addressing the criminal record.
addressing,
So those five things are going to hit them right off the bat.
in addition to some others, but yes.
Okay. All right. So would that be part of I guess, the treatment plan makeup for them to have those things in place? Would those things be in place or be in their treatment plan
Coming out.
Yeah. Or once they get out, then they have to set it up from that standpoint.
I'm not smiling because it's funny. I'm smiling because you're asking the right questions. Typically not. You're not going to necessarily see someone walking out with a holistic transitional plan. A lot of the work comes from someone being partnered with a mentor and then that mentor becoming an advocate for them as they're walking out. So let's say, for example, you're going into Wake Correctional as a community volunteer sponsor and you've been working with this specific guy, we'll just say John. John comes to you and says, you know what, I can't go back home, but I need I need housing and a job. Can you help me with that? And so it's going to be you going out in the community advocating on behalf of him to make sure that he successfully has a plan that will be able to assist him in actually reintegrating into society. So I want to say two things. Reentry and reintegration are two different meanings. Reentry is just me walking out the door of prison. Reintegration is reintegrating into society, back into the family, back into the community as a fully restored citizen.
Okay. They are two, yeah, that's two different things. The expectation is different.
Yes.
Now, one of the things, we didn't do the show last week. I was in a training, the peer-to-peer support training. And one of the things that we were trained to do is, even when a person is in prison or in jail, we go in and start
Working with them.
start working with them as much as we can. That
Right.
preparation for the second phase,
Right.
for I guess the 9 months even before they come out, and then the last 30 days when they are coming out, have some things in place. But then once they come out, also there's a couple other resources that need to be, like you said, they need to be in place. The job, man. But when we talk about jobs, we do have to mention again, talking about second chance opportunities, because
Yes.
that felony or misdemeanor is going to be on your record.
Right.
Uh, how do you see that being addressed? I guess most of the time, that question by either of you, and how do you, I guess, move someone beyond that, um, in getting a job? I know even with the jobs for life, we kind of, that's something that's touched on during that 8 weeks, that 8 weeks training. That but everybody don't get that. We get it in jobs for life, or we did. But for someone that don't go through jobs for life, are they gonna miss that opportunity because they do have a felon on their record, and not being able to get the job? What type of program, or I mean, what do they have to do if they don't go through that jobs for life? Are they just out there, or what?
There are other resources here in our state. Community Success Initiative, Dennis Gaddy is also formerly incarcerated, and he's executive director of that organization. He does amazing work in the community in really empowering individuals so that they are successful in reintegrating. And he works in all of those areas of housing and education and those pieces. There are some other organizations that are specific to reentry needs. I don't know of an organization that meets all of them under the umbrella of that agency. But I think that when you are working with someone that's coming out, you need to be able to identify that. One of the things that we're going to be working on our website is creating a toolkit, not just for the individual that's been impacted, but churches and other entities that want to be a part of reentry. And it has all of the information, all of those resources, all of those organizations that exclusively work with this population in terms of the barriers and collateral consequences, and addressing that, so that if it's you and your organization wanting to work with someone, you'll know all the ways to get involved, and also you'll have the resources to be able to connect that individual to where they need to go.
Great, good. Byron, let me ask you, with the churches, how is jobs for, okay, how do the churches get involved with jobs for life? And I'm gonna just say here locally, but also international and nationally too. But just thinking on a local level, how would a church get involved with jobs for life, or even find out about jobs for life, and make that connection?
Yeah, so our website, jobsforlife.org, is the best place to begin. And if you can join our network for free, which allows you to get access to all of our curriculum and training resources. There's a large amount of training resources that are online free when you join the network. So if you go online to jobsforlife.org, go to the top of the page and click on Start a Class. You'll fill out a profile, and then you will be a part of the Jobs for Life network. Then you can download the curriculum and you can start looking at it and seeing what it's all about. From there, we have numerous training opportunities. We have a brand new online training opportunity where it's for 6 weeks. There's a cost to it, but for 6 weeks, you go through 6 modules about the why of Jobs for Life, the problem that we're addressing, and the process for solving that problem through Jobs for Life. So you can go online and you can do that 6-week class. We also have multiple training sessions, webinars, white papers, just process papers online as well to help you get up and get started, because it's going to take a team of volunteers, and it could be some paid staff as well at some organizations, to run the Jobs for Life class. There's a team of 8 people that we recommend run the Jobs for Life class, including one-on-one mentors for each student that is going through the class. So there's free information online. There's some paid information online that you can gather. There's paid training. There's free training coming up across the country at various times as well. All those are ways that churches can get up and get running with Jobs for Life.
So let me ask you, would the pastor contact you, or the assistant pastor? I mean, who makes that, who is that point of contact for if a church wanted to get involved with Jobs for Life, who is the point of contact that makes that happen? Is it the
Right.
pastor, preacher?
Yeah, whoever is passionate about it in the church.
Uh-huh.
We would love for pastors and associate pastors to get in touch with us, outreach directors, outreach pastors. But typically, what happens is someone in the church hears about Jobs for Life at a conference, at a show. They hear a radio program like this. They begin researching it, pulling information together. And a lot of times they'll go to their pastor and tell them about this new program called Jobs for Life. Can they run it? And a pastor will say, yeah, here's a room, here's a little money to do it, pull some people together and make it happen. And then a lot of times they begin to push from the grassroots, from the bottom up, and then the pastor gets involved and gets excited about it. But what we would hope for, and the ideal situation, is when pastors and leaders in churches understand the scope and scale of what Jobs for Life is, and they begin to teach the vocation of work from the pulpits. They begin to teach the fact that God created us to work the earth together to make it to flourish. And so it becomes a complete theological issue. And then people will start asking, how do we get involved? How do we do something? When pastors begin teaching on the theological mandate that Christ gave us to take care of the prisoner, they're like, well, how do we do it? Well, you can run a Jobs for Life program, and you can identify people who are re-entering society, and you can do all the things that Miea talked about, start addressing jobs, education, housing, and all that. But Jobs for Life is a set program that churches can pick up and run and begin helping people reintegrate into society. But it's best if a pastor does it, but usually it's a lay leader or someone who just gets fired up about it and begins to pull people together around the program.
Now, on our website, we're more educational, but we're also we speak exclusively to the individual that's been impacted by incarceration. So you can go to ncjustice.org, type in Second Chance Alliance. We have all the information that talks about expungement, the collateral consequences, your right to vote, all of the policies that impact that population in terms of housing and employment, and then ways to really leverage the voice of those who've been impacted by incarceration, giving them a space where they can enter their story and their voices to be heard, because that's the platform that we're coming from, not just me out there advocating, but bringing my brothers and sisters along so that their voices can be heard and their stories can be told, that they get to put that personal touch of why this is important to them and why they have a right to live and to thrive.
So let me back you up a little bit. Tell us a little bit about the Second Chance. What is it? The Second Chance Alliance with the Justice Center. I know that's your new role. That's your new job.
Yes.
So I mean, tell us a little bit about that for those that say that don't know anything about it.
So the Second Chance Alliance is exclusive to men and women that have been impacted by incarceration, their families, and the communities. So this is an outreach. This is an outreach program that is geared towards amplifying, or my expression is amplifying, the voices of those who've been directly impacted by incarceration. We want to really see men and women live and thrive. Kind of the mission of the Justice Center is to eliminate poverty, right? Eliminate poverty for all populations in North Carolina. But I was extremely excited to find out that there was an organization that says, we really want to make this issue important. We want to have a forum, a voice. We want someone to be that voice. We want someone that's been impacted to be in this position. It's very rare that you're going to find an organization that creates a position for someone that has been impacted by incarceration. For me, here in this area, it's like never heard of. And so the fact that that happened, I was like so ecstatic, beyond words. But also grateful to be able to enter into this space, because for me, I think that this is a very sacred space. When you're walking with the broken, it's a very sacred space.
Say that again now.
When you're walking with the broken, it's a very sacred space.
Expand on that for us. When you say that, when you make that expression, when you're walking with the broken.
What does it mean? What does it mean to me?
Yeah. Well, what
does it mean in general? When you look at the lives, and I'm sure those of you that are viewing this, you know someone that has been touched by some type of hardship. It doesn't have to be incarceration. It could be the death of a child. It could be an illness. It could be you know a family that's been struggling financially. You see. You can look on TV and see all of the hurt and pain that's permeates through our country. Like right now, we have this very distorted racial narrative, right? So, you know someone, you live, if you're living in your community and you're living beside your neighbors, you've seen someone that has been hurt and traumatized by some specific situation. So for me, when you're walking with someone, and I come from the perspective, when I say walking with someone, typically when I talk about this is when I'm training mentors who want to walk with people that are coming out of prison. But when you're walking with that individual, that's a very sacred space. You have to enter that in a gentle way. You can't come in with, I have all the answers for you and I'm going to solve your life's problem. That's not what it's intended to be. When I'm coming from the church perspective, you are reflecting the heart of Christ. You are reflecting the image of Jesus when you're in that space. And that's a very sacred space because we are that treasured population for him. It's not by happenstance that there are 4 books that are written behind prison walls in the Bible. So it's not it's not ironic that happened. But when you are in that space, you have to be gentle because that's a very personal thing to that individual, whether it's incarceration, whatever it is, it's very personal, very deep, and you have to establish trust. You have to establish a fact that they can trust you, that if I am disclosing something that has hindered me from many things in life, I have to know that I can trust you. I have to know that my story is safe with you, and not just for the individual, but for their families. We don't know what happens. I mean, you can look at all the things that are going on in our state right now. If you're looking at the family in Charlotte and the people that want to rally around and support them, that's not just something that you just go, oh, I want to be involved in because I want to make you feel better. That is a tragedy that just transcends across all populations. And specifically in that moment, we have to be sacred. We have to honor them. We have to support them, yes, but you have to be very careful when you're walking in that space, specifically if you are not a person of color, right? Or specifically if you are coming from the church, because church has a mentality of, I want to fix it. We can fix it. We can pray you out of this. And I'm like, you have to be intentional, but being intentional means you have to establish a level of trust. I have to know that I can trust you to invite you into that space. And then we can journey on this together. But it comes from, I have to expect you, I have to respect that space that you're in order to be a part of that.
And Terrence, elaborating on what Miea is saying scripturally, Jesus came in as a baby, and he spent 30 years listening and learning about the community before he began speaking into it. So when Miea talks about this entering into this sacred space, a lot of the process of doing that is first to begin to listen and not think that you know the answers and you're trying to fix people. Is to come in and to listen, to be like a little baby, and to be fed and to hear and to know what's going on in a person's life. And as we learn, as people of faith, we learn to listen to the person, we learn to listen to the Spirit, and then together we can walk in this sacred space that Miea talks about and come up with solutions out of relationship because we're falling in love with each other. That's what it's going to take, nothing less than that.
All right. Again, I agree. That's what it's going to take. And like you said, walking in that sacred space with someone, I don't think we do that enough, or we even recognize it enough to do it. But is there a call? Okay, let's take the call.
I don't think we do that enough, or we recognize it enough.
You're going to need to turn your sound on your computer off, or walk away from the computer. Okay.
All right, you have a question? Caller?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you clear.
Yeah, I had a question for Byron and Miea.
pertaining to Job for Life.
Okay. Feel free. Go ahead.
You really need to walk away from the computer and not listen to it because there's a big delay. Okay, he hung up. He can't.
Again, but anybody that do want to call in, we do have a couple of minutes left on the show. You can call in at 919-518-9773.
Can you hear me better now?
Oh yeah, we can hear you. It's just the background noise was a delay, but it sounds pretty good now. Go ahead with your question.
Yeah, my question was for Miea and Byron. With the recent things that have been going on with the election and also with the shooting, the reactions to the shootings, and the divide that it's causing between, I guess, the church, meaning the black church and the white church, whatever we want to call it, and the views that's being posted by members, has that caused a issue or caused a delay in the mission of Job for Life of merging the churches together?
The whole narrative that is emerging is causing pressure and it's causing stress. The beautiful thing about Jobs for Life, it gives us this platform to come together and start talking about these issues. And so we see that happening. We see in cities that have a holistic view of the gospel and how they can be engaging culture in their cities. They realize that everybody can agree that we need to help people get jobs so that they can thrive and flourish as human beings. And when we start to do this, it gives us the permission to start talking about race. And so in some places it is happening. A lot of people don't understand it. They just say, hey, people just need to be able to get a job. I'm here helping you get a job. And they begin doing Jobs for Life, and they have some measure of success. The locations that I see that are really doing a good job understand that our whole system is broken, and they need to come in, as that humble child and learn to listen to people who are being impacted. White churches specifically, white leaders specifically, and some of my heroes are just people, pastors and leaders, white leaders who are saying, tell us your perspective, tell us your hurt, tell us your pain, and let us listen and learn from you. William Barber, the pastor out of Raleigh, the president of the NAACP in North Carolina, used the analogy of a drowning person, and the thrashing about and the angst that they have, and how a person that comes to rescue or to help, the first thing you do is you have to establish some trust. You have to come up alongside, and you have to be gentle in some of these things. I'm not getting it completely right, but he just created that metaphor of the drowning person and how they react to it. And you don't come up and bash the person in the head first. And all of these things are now coming to the surface because of the violence that's occurring. People are frustrated, systemic injustices that have wounded people for a long time. But Jobs for Life is a platform to help that. It's not perfect, but people who are really understanding it are understanding that the platform gives them the opportunity to listen to other people and start walking alongside of them.
Okay, so now it's really, like you said, Job for Life, this is really the opportunity to impact the church with the program.
Yes, and that's a large part of what we try to do, communicate that it's about jobs, yes, but there's a lot of systemic issues that we can address that impact joblessness as well, that this gives us the opportunity. And so part of our role is to educate the church on that.
Byron,
All right, thank you, Byron.
Amnon got a question for you also.
No, it's not a question. I mean,
okay.
What you're talking about with the drowning person, to address what you said and what you said about helping, the first rule of a lifeguard, if you see somebody drowning, you don't hand him you don't give him your hand to hold on to. They'll pull you under. You have to know how to go about it to make sure that you are lifting him out of the water. You can't just go in there and say, okay, I'm going to bring him out, because you're going to go under with them. And that's really that's the first rule of lifeguarding.
Yeah, so I was mixing metaphors, but I know that the message that William Barber painted in a recent article really captivated a lot of people's attention of how you address the violence and what's going on. And so
I do have some questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's
Go ahead.
how. I mean, I'm listening to Miea, and I'm really, really impressed with what you're talking about and how you're handling it. But living here and not being black, where I come from in Israel, I am considered black, as a matter of fact. I'm the second. I'm not the white. So, but over here, I'm white. When I see what's going on, I don't see how, when something like you were talking about the shooting, how destroying a store helps anybody other than the frustration of the person that went in there. What gets me madder is that these people may not be even from there. They don't even know the family. They do it because that's what we do. How do you get, because until this is over, until that doesn't happen, there's always going to be friction between black and white, and even between black and black. I mean, not all the businesses that are being destroyed belong to white people. A lot of them belong to black people. Those guys that go and destroy, they go at night and they do it. People are not there. They don't know who owns it. I think it really stands in the way of you being able to help a lot of other people, because you have to rely on the community. Like when you're talking about helping somebody and mentoring them, it's not a one-on-one thing. It is one-on-one at the end, but really it's a community that should come together and say, okay, you go and help John. And it's okay, because if I'm going to help John, and then I'm going to help Joe, and then I'm going to help all at the same time, I'm going to be leveraged out. I'm not going to be able to do it anymore. And then what happens? So somebody else comes out and say, well, why won't you help me? Well, I can't. You have to rely on a whole community that has a lot of resources behind it. But I
hear what you're saying, and I agree with you. And I think one of the reasons why Raleigh did not blow up a few months ago when Akiel Jenkins was shot by a police officer.
Yeah.
You had pastors in that community, good friends of mine, Royce Hathcock and his son Spencer Hathcock, Casanova Womack, who works with a ministry, Neighbor to Neighbor, Chris Jones and his wife Jackie Jones. They immediately went out into the neighborhood and began walking the neighborhood and talking to people and saying, how you doing? What's going on? Talk to me. And they were listening. And it wasn't, they didn't just descend in out of nowhere. They had been there. They've been there for 20 years. And that's what it's going to take. It's going to take pastors who are walking in the power of God. When Christ left and he said, you will receive power to be my witnesses. Those type of people, Christians who are living in the power of Christ, who are walking alongside of broken people in broken systems, trapped in poverty, day after day after day, and saying, I love you, I care for you, I'm here for you. When these issues happen, they begin to speak, and the violence can have a chance to stop. Now, in the places where the violence is erupting, someone's going to have to be bold enough to walk into that with love and talk to people and pull the people out of this destruction. I mean, it's scary stuff. People are frightened, they're scared. This is why Donald Trump is being so effective. He's activated the amygdala in the world, and people are.
I don't use that name on my show.
I do.
On your show. But I hear that guy. I hear you, that guy.
Yeah.
he's triggering that fear, and people aren't able to. They're not thinking straight. I mean, Christians are lining up behind them, and they're kind of suspending their thinking, and we need to step back and we need to pause. And when someone is hurt and wounded and they're lashing out, you got to say, Jesus said, to love that person, to reach out to your enemy, to embrace your enemy, to engage in hospitality and all these things. And it's scary and people are afraid and they're not doing it, but that's what it's going to take.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that when you say preachers and the clergy to go out there, you're saying churches and all that is because you're Christian. But
no,
they are.
I'm saying for Christians, that's
Yeah.
why we do it. But there are other people we got to join in with other
Right.
people of goodwill who are engaged in the struggle within their faith context, or they just understand the power of humanity. We've got to join in with them. We got to stop saying, Jesus saves only, and I'm not going to work with you unless you get, all of that. It's people who are inspired by whatever faith tradition they have to care about other human beings and affirm the dignity in every human being. We have to come together to do this. So I'm not just talking about Christians.
Amen.
I think that's bottom line. The whole of society have to have a heart for humanity in general, and I don't think that we are there yet, but a lot of people are. So we just have to keep on moving forward and trying to change the lives that we can, because it's going to take not just the community, not just the individual, but it's going to take the whole of society to make that mind, well, not just that mind shift, but also that heart shift also, because it speaks, what's happening right now speaks to the heart of man. And it's either you have a heart for mankind, or you've grown so cold you don't realize that you have a heart for mankind. But God sent no man to this earth that didn't have a heart. You may have got lost somewhere along the way. You may have grown cold because of things they've gone through, the brokenness, the woundedness. I say everybody have a hole in their soul that needs to be healed. And until we can we have to continue to reach more souls and trying to heal those wounds with the things that we do. Just being the spirit-led people that we are. That's gonna, that should never stop. I think the atrocities that we see time and time again, whether it's black or white or what have you, a lot of times those things are going to continue to happen, but we have to continue to speak to the heart of man, the heart of mankind about those things. To change, we can't give up. We can never give up the fight. As long as there's a creator, we got to always have that mindset that all things are possible, and working that faith that all things are possible.
Yep, and it's not just a black-white issue. Our Native American brothers and sisters are speaking into this. Our Asian and Latino are all a part of it, and we all got to come together and come up with new solutions.
So, Miea, why don't you close us out with how we can get in touch with you? If someone wants you for a speaking engagement, how can they get in touch with you? And just how to get in touch with you social media-wise, and Byron, also you.
Okay, so you can reach me on social media on Instagram at Miea Charisse. That's MIEACHARISE. You can follow me on Instagram. On Facebook, it's just Miea Walker, and again, MIEA. And you can also reach out to me at my job at Miea@ncjustice.org.
Byron, how can we get in touch with you?
Yep, so I'm on Facebook and Twitter, Byron McMillan. That's Byron, like Lord Byron the poet. McMillan, McMillan, and it's just that, no dots, no dashes on Facebook and Twitter, or my email is bmcmillan@jobsforlife.org.
All right. Miea, I want to wish you a happy belated birthday. I think
Thank
you
you.
started your new job and your birthday on the same, that was all on the same day?
Yes.
So that's a
Amazing
nice
gift.
birthday gift. Yeah, that's a nice birthday gift to receive, the job that you want. I'm sure it's not just a job, like I said, for you, it's
Passion.
yeah, it's definitely you found your passion and your mission, all wrapped in the job. So, congratulations! I appreciate you guys coming on the show, speaking the way you have. Know you always are welcome back on the show, and feel free, just pass the information on to anyone that has a mission, a passion, or a purpose that want to be on the show. To feel free to come on.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Terrence.
All right, you guys have a blessed week, and you continue celebrating your birthday on through the rest of September. All right, you guys have a great evening, and I look forward to seeing you all next Tuesday. God bless America.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, My Life, My Will with Gisela DiCarlo, The Tanya Love Show, Health Then with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Triangle Be Well with Howard Jacobson, Lunch and Learn with Rabbi Yisrael Cutler, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, Current Affairs with Amnon Nissan. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section on nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Atomos.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.